It's a great day to be a coyote. Welcome, Coyote Nation, to another episode of Backpack Podcast. We are going to be bringing you all your favorite games, memories, and of course, discussions with our fellow coyotes. As a disclaimer, we have no affiliation to the University of South Dakota. This is a podcast ran by fans for fans. The ideas and comments do not represent the university. Our opinions are our own. Be sure to find us on Twitter at BackThePackSD and join the USD Coyote Fans Nations page on Facebook. Last but not least, join the Howling Pack at www.goyotes.com. With that said, let's jump into another show.
Mitch, how we doing?
Grant, what's up, buddy?
Doing well, doing well. It's finally game week. We're here, less than 48 hours to kick off, so it's a great day.
Man, I tell you what, it feels good to be back in the saddle for me, no pun intended, playing the Texans on Saturday.
That's right. I was just gonna say we've missed you here recently, so I'm glad that you're back in action here. And I mean, I guess if you're gonna miss some time, the bye week's a good spot to do it. So I really not too bad of a layoff there.
Man, right, man, my schedule's been crazy. I think it's been 2 weeks since I've been on here. So here we are. We got just you and I tonight. No Jake. He's got some dad duties to take care of. So it's just you and I. And I see we have Yote fan in here already. He's giving a shout out to all Yote fans.
As always, which is always appreciated for sure. So
Yote fan, we love you, buddy.
yes.
Oh, we got Jeremy in here jumping in. He's all excited. Let's go, boys.
I was going to say a lot to be excited about, right? It's as we call it, season number 2. It's do or die playoff season playing in December.
I tell you what, like this right now with the playoffs, like you and I both have on our TVs next to us, we have the Coyote volleyball game going on. We're down 1-0. It's Creighton. That game started about an hour late. We've got basketball season in full swing. We've got obviously the football playoffs going on. Like there is just a ton of stuff going on right now for Coyote fans, and a lot to be excited for.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've really been fully entrenched in football, obviously with it being playoffs, and December football is just a whole different level of football. But you're exactly right. Men's team's playing well. Basketball's well under its way. Volleyball teams in the NCAA tournament. Like there's a lot to be excited about. So looking forward to Saturday as well. It's I think we're gonna have a good game, as Bob alluded to in his presser. This is the playoffs. There's no more bad teams left. There's no teams that are going to come in and roll over. There's no teams that have already kind of called it a season, if you will. This is playoffs. Everybody's after the same goal here.
Well, and that's just it. Like we're down to 16 at this point, right? So even we're beyond the 24, and so every round the competition just gets that much better. This is really the last week where the spreads are still a little bit large, but we do expect the games to be a lot more competitive this week than they were last week. But yeah, I have to mention this too. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that yesterday I felt, and I was running our Twitter account, but with National Signing Day and the surprise $5.6 million donation that also hit yesterday, the new red helmet, that's yet another new rendition of our football helmets. It's yet another version of that we've seen. I think it's the 4th new version we've had this year.
Yep.
With the all red, white script writing and then the white stripe. I was kind of just overwhelmed with everything that was going on, and my fingers were sore by the end of the night with all the tweeting.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing too. It's like a lot of off the field action as well with the new recruiting class, which we'll spend a whole episode on that, I'm sure, down the road here. But the recruiting class, and then what you were talking about with the big donation for athletics, it's exciting for sure. So
and so that was Dr. John House and family.
Yes.
The article's out there on goyotes.com, so if you want to check that out, there's a lot more detail. We won't dive into that here, but yet another $5 million+ donation. That's 2 now in a span of 6 months?
Yeah, for sure, in this calendar year. So things are trending in the right direction. It's exciting, and all things are pointing in the right direction. There's no doubt about that. So,
and last thing I'm going to say on that is that both donations were from guys that are in the Coyote Brotherhood, which is the group of
Mhm.
former players. So that's fantastic to see them leading by example there.
They do. They have a really good following. They have a really good group, a really active
Yeah,
group. I ran into a bunch of them at the Wisconsin game. Really good group of guys all the way around on that. So, no,
for sure.
very, very cool for sure. So, but we have a big game coming up on Saturday.
Man, we
The
do.
fun thing about the playoffs as well is that a lot of times we don't know or very unfamiliar with the opponent, and that is certainly the case here for Saturday. So I thought maybe before we jump in, set the table a little bit of kind of the game, of course, but then also just a little bit about Tarleton State. I think I'm saying that correctly. I'm sure I'll be corrected via Twitter if I'm not, but against Tarleton State,
Just
the Texans, if you will. So
just make sure you get the L in the right spot in their name there.
yeah, that was a fun thing to see
What's that?
conspire here
What?
today.
Yeah, I was not expecting. What was the message you sent us? Is that you weren't expecting the ticket office to give them some bulletin board
Yeah,
material?
it said if
Man,
they're going to get bulletin board material, I didn't think it'd be from the ticket office, right?
right, right.
So
Can't believe we misspelled their name. Good lord.
yeah, yeah. For people, as I
Uh,
say, for people listening, we misspelled Tarleton on the banner ad on the site to get your tickets, and Tarleton took a snippet of that and put it on their own Twitter feed. So they're poking fun at us a
yeah.
little bit today, and so have that going for us. But so game, of course, kickoff is at 2 p.m.
Yep.
instead of the regular 1 p.m. So 2 p.m. at the Dome. I'm seeing AccuWeather as of right now showing a game time weather high of 58 degrees, which seems insane to me. I hope that's correct.
That's well above average for South Dakota in December. That's for sure.
Yeah, if you
Man,
would have told me a number that started with a 4, I'm thrilled with that in
right,
December. So that's a great
right.
one. I'm really looking forward to tailgate because of that. So we'll have a good tailgate environment. As it sits right now, South Dakota is a 16.5 point favorite in this game with an over under
Yep.
52.5 for anybody who's into those stats. Um, and like I said, Tarleton State Texans, their logo, the Texans, coming to us from Stephenville. Let me confirm that I'm getting that right too. Yes,
Yep. That's right.
Stephenville, Texas, coming for is where they reside. So um, I do have a couple notes just on Tarleton, just for folks who are
Yeah.
curious
Go
about
for
the
it.
school in general. Um, I grabbed a couple of interesting nuggets. I will say they do not like to go by TSU.
Ooh, yeah.
Found that out on there. So TSU is not a go for them. I would say the most
That's
interesting.
TSU. TSU is Tennessee State. That's
Oh,
that's the
oh,
that's the TSU.
right. See, there's a lot of TSUs. That's exactly what they said.
There,
So they just said
there.
forget it. We're not even going to do it. So,
Yep. Yep.
but I would say the most interesting thing that I found out about this, they of course used to be a very prominent D2 powerhouse type of program as of pretty recently, right? This is their first year of
Yeah.
eligibility in FCS football,
That's
um,
right.
and they have a stadium that's ultra impressive, holds up to 20,000, and according to their attendance records, they get on average about 17,000 folks at a game. Um,
Yeah.
so that kind of shocked me. I think if you look at attendance across the FCS, that's in the top 10 of that for a program that was Division II just 4 years ago. Kind of interesting to see. So they've got a good following.
Hey, everything's bigger in
Everything.
Texas, man.
I was just about to say that everything's bigger in Texas. So, but that's a few of the tidbits that I kind of pulled off about them. If you had anything that you want to share, feel free.
Okay, yeah, sure. So you mentioned their facilities, and they have made a rapid transition from NAIA to D2 to FCS, and they are in a hurry to get to the FBS level.
Hmm.
It's kind of a race with them and some other Texas schools to get to the FBS, and so they are really pushing hard. They've invested a ton of money recently into their football program, and it shows.
Hmm.
Brand new facilities, really nice stadium. Like you said, I think they rank number 4 in FCS for average attendance, right around that 17, 18,000 number that you mentioned. So,
Hmm.
yes. And their coach, Todd Witten, he's been there 15 years. He's been there through all of those transitions. So he's seen each one of those jumps in levels. And he knew, I watched the interview with him on YouTube, and he knew it was going to take some time, right? As you move up, it takes time to be competitive in that new level. And they have been, and this is the first year that they've been playoff eligible in the FCS, because there's there's like a 3 or 4 year delay where you're
Yep.
not eligible for the playoffs. And this is their first year, and here they are, knocking on the door, obviously in the playoffs, and now have won their first ever playoff game. We know it was against Drake, but nonetheless, history for their program, and they're definitely on the rise, and a lot of respect for that. But they are in a good area and an area that takes football very seriously, so it's no surprise.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I was just about to say that, and to your point, in Texas, they take it pretty serious. And but no, kudos to them. We all remember I always called it purgatory of the Great West, right? That transition period. So they're coming out of that, which is not easy to come out of that and be immediately competitive, just because of the hurdles that kind of come with that transition, right? So, yeah, big kudos to them, right? They've had a ultra impressive year, sitting at 10-3 now, but that's the point of the season we're in, right? We're not going to look up at any of these teams that we cover from here on out and say, oh boy, these guys sure are a dud. No, those teams are long gone for sure. So,
right. And I think you mentioned it too. This is our first meeting between us and them.
Yes.
So there is no history to speak of here.
Yes, no history to speak of, and yeah, we get that. It's a common theme in the playoffs, right? Either a first-time meeting or very few meetings between teams, which is what makes the playoffs so great for FCS too, because it's a true national playoff. So,
Right.
But I think sticking with Tarleton, I think we kind of stay on that thread a little bit and maybe talk about their team, or I guess at least let's talk about their offense first. I think that's probably the most interesting part of their team, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, that sounds good. So they're coming in as the 13 seed here in the playoffs. They're at 10-3. I just wanted to mention that too, and they're in the United. What is that? The UAC United Athletic Conference.
Mm-hmm.
So their offense, they're led by their junior quarterback Victor Gabalis. He is he's solid. He's going to throw the ball. I think he's at what, like 2,500 yards, 19 touchdowns, and like 7 interceptions on the year.
Yep.
So he can definitely sling it. He does have a couple wide receivers that we'll talk about here, but the unique part about them and their offense is they run that. I'm familiar with it because I'm also a Vols fan, but that Tennessee Vols offense, which is that really wide spread. So you'll see the receivers split about maybe 5 to 7 extra yards wider than what you would normally see a receiver lineup. So they basically on the hash or outside of the hash, way to the sideline. You'll see them lined up really, really wide. And then they run a really delayed RPO game. And so basically you're looking at, on every single play, it's a run pass option. And there are each play call, there's about 3 or 4 different options that they can run off of that one play call. Now they don't have a huge playbook, but again, on every single time they snap the ball, there's like anywhere from 3 to 4 different plays called. And it's all just a read game, and it's a long mesh point. So you see the quarterback hold on to that ball and kind of ride the running back, and he may give it, he may pull it. But it's a really delayed, really unique style of offense, but essentially an RPO game nonetheless.
Yeah, and you make a great point about that. Is that Gabalis, their quarterback? He, if you've watched a little bit, he doesn't just drop back and pass basically ever, right? There's very few that it's a true drop back pass situation. There's always some sort of play action RPO option that's involved. And to your point too, that slow developing mesh thing, I think folks who maybe haven't seen it this year will be kind of interested to see that. It's certainly a thing an offense or defense has not seen all year. So that'll be something that'll be new and kind of unique to them as well. So I will say, going off of your comments about the quarterback, the reason they've had so much success with this RPO game is because they have one of the best running backs in the entire country on their team as well, right? So
that's right.
Kavion Britton, he was a Walter Payton finalist, he was a Walter Payton, at least on the list. I don't know where he made it, but I believe he was in at least the top 30 list that they initially released. But for context for folks listening, he has 1,891 rushing yards this year so far on 316 carries with 18 touchdowns. So some pretty gaudy rushing numbers from him, and he's been very impressive for them as well, of course.
Yeah, and really, so we talked about the quarterback, Victor. He's not a dual threat quarterback. He really doesn't run and really can't run. And so they give the ball to this Avon Britton a lot. I think he averages like 25 touches a game. And so they're
Yep.
going to use him early and often. Now he's tiny. He gets lost in that backfield because he's only 5'7", but he's
Hmm.
195 pounds. So he is absolutely solid in terms of his build, and he's fast. Like he's electric. And I would say he's almost a combination of like Charles Pierre and our own KJL. Kind of if you were to merge those two guys together,
Right.
because he's super fast, but he's also built right. But he's short.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of like a Maurice Jones-Drew type, right? He's kind of the bowling ball, if
Yeah,
you will. That's super
yeah,
explosive as well. So, um,
yeah.
I mean, we can get into this later, but I mean that's going to be a huge key for the Yotes, right? Is to keep him in check because he is an explosive player. And he's by far the most explosive player on their team. Um, Obviously, with the amount of carries that he's been getting. So,
Now
um,
you mentioned his yards. It's like 1,900 yards for the year. That's basically that's like what Tyson and Pierre have combined, right?
it is. I was
Rough,
just gonna say
roughly.
it's yeah, let me pull that up because you're right. It's got to be pretty darn close. Yeah, Pierre's
I
at
mean,
over 1,000,
that just goes to
1,074.
show you like how much they give him the ball. Like he is the main focal point. It really the simple key of this game is going to be just all eyes on him, right? Like if our defensive line can own the line of scrimmage like we have pretty much every game we've played this year,
Hmm.
that will quickly shut down that RPO game. But yeah, more on that later. But yeah, he's their bell cow. He is electric. And then let's talk their star wide receiver too while we're here. Number 6, Darius Cooper.
Yes, I was just gonna say Darius Cooper is the other name that people need to be aware of. He will get targeted a ton on Saturday,
Yep.
um, and honestly, it's really you call it a three-headed monster with Caballos, but more so because he's the quarterback and he's just making sure he gets the ball to those two. I would call it
Right.
more of a two-headed monster with Britton and Cooper, but Cooper is another guy that they go to as often as possible in that RPO offense that they run. So just for context on him, because he's got 67 receptions for 1,288 yards on the season with 11 touchdowns. So he's a guy they go to a lot. I believe he was targeted well over like 13 or 14 times against Drake.
Yeah,
So
he had 11. He had 11 for 190. I have that memorized because that's a ton.
yeah,
11.
yeah. So there it really is, and it's not to oversimplify things because it's more than that, of course, but it really comes down to those two, right?
Yeah.
If we can find, if the defense can find a way to make sure that those guys don't have a breakout game or big explosive plays, there's just not a lot of contributors outside of those two that really make you put up the sound bell when you're watching them play.
Now, I didn't do a ton of homework on these guys as far as watching some of their highlights, previous games this year, but I assume they take deep shots to him.
They do. Yeah, they'll take. I
Yeah.
mean, they'll. It's funny. They'll from the little that I've watched. I'm not going to say that I've watched a ton. I of course watched the entirety of the Drake game last week and watched a few highlights here and there. But it seems like they'll try to get him involved any way that they can. Right. So deep, short, middle. They get him involved. They want to get him the ball as often as they can.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because our DBs will be tested in this game, and so we have to that's part of that RPO is they're going to run that long delayed kind of handoff. Quarterback's going to pull it and he's going to take a 30-40 yard deep shot. So our
Hmm.
corners have to be ready to run, with stride, step for step, stride by stride with these receivers, especially him as he's going down the field. But really, that's it. It's those two guys. If you can lock down those two, we win this game easily. So I don't know that I have a whole lot more on their offense. Do you have anything else you want to talk about
No,
their offense?
no. I think the last comment I'll make on it is that as we mentioned before, they want to get the ball to Britain as much as
Yeah.
possible. And by taking that away, it's going to force their quarterback to throw a lot. They haven't had to do that a lot this year because Britain's had so
Right.
much success. Um, and just looking at stats from last year, it seems like uh, Gabalis was turned the ball over a lot when he had to throw a lot. So I think that's an opportunity for our defense is that if we can force them to throw the ball a little bit, there may be some turnover opportunities. Although we're not a team that forces a lot of turnovers, I think there's an
Right.
opportunity for that if it gets into a pass heavy game for them.
Let's do this. I just remembered I had some stats for their offense versus our defense. So we have the
Oh
number
yeah.
two we have the number two defense in the nation, guys,
Hmm.
and that's no joke. And we've seen that every single week throughout this season. And so we have the number two scoring defense. We're giving up like I don't know what is it, 12 or 14 points a game, something like that.
Hmm.
And you look at their offense. So their offense is rated 28. Now that's really good. It's a good offense, and they have experienced guys, like we just talked about. There's some seniors and juniors there, but part of me says take that with a grain of salt a little bit because you have to look at the level of competition. And in their conference, the level of competition that they're playing compared to the competition that we're playing is just a little bit different. And so, I see that 28 number, and at first I was like, okay, they're going to put up some points, and then I quickly realized, oh yeah, dud, dummy, they're in the UAC. So you got to kind of factor that in just a little bit too when you're looking at those numbers.
Yeah, and I will. You make a good point with that too, and I guess I'll pick on Tarleton State a little bit. You're exactly right. The UAC this year was also similar to the Missouri Valley, where the top, very top heavy, and
True.
then really
Yeah.
poor at the bottom, right? So
Right.
Tarleton State, they do have two losses. One to Eastern Kentucky, was also a playoff team, and who's the other one? Abilene Christian.
Abilene. Yep.
Abilene, excuse me. Yeah, Abilene
Yep.
Christian, who finished first. Tarleton finished second. Eastern Kentucky finished in the top three. Um, you have Southern Utah, who also finished 6-2 in the conference, and then after that, no team won more than three conference games. So,
Yeah.
again, sometimes it's just how the conference shakes out, but
Right.
they do have their two losses did come to the third place finisher and the first place finisher in their conference. So, you're
Right.
right. And I guess I'll transition to this. I was going to save it for later, but I think this is a good point to kind of bring it up. Is um, watching that Drake game, the speeds of those two teams seemed pretty similar, especially early. Drake
Yes.
got all over them right away. So
Right.
I was a little surprised by that. I thought that Tarleton was going to kind of dominate, just kind of start to finish, just knowing what we saw from Drake earlier in this year. Um, I think Tarleton's going to be a little shocked, or maybe a little shell shock early in this game at the size, speed of our team. I don't think, in full honesty, looking at their schedule, I don't think they've seen a team as good as us since really Baylor, right? I
Right.
mean, I just
Right.
looked through their schedule, and that's a long time ago, and that's a hard comparison, but they just
Right.
haven't seen a team this put together, this quality, and really an elite team like we have. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be a little bit of shell shock for them right out of the gate to go, oh boy, this is a little bit different than what we saw last week.
Well, and that's really it, right? Like if you look at the level that we're at and the level that they're at, it's just we have more dudes. I mean, we just have
Hmm.
more talent, bigger, faster, stronger. And so, one of my keys for this game is just going to be our typical bully ball. Just
Hmm.
owning the line of scrimmage and just wearing them down and pounding them. Just kind of grinding them, just a slow grind, just like we do to everybody. And so that was kind of one of the things I was looking at. And then their rushing offense is 17th overall, again in the nation, which is really really good. But we have the 13th rated rushing defense. So
Hmm.
again, very, very similar there. We don't have to go into details, but we know they're going to run the ball. We talked about that already. And then here's another fun one for you. Just looking at their offense versus our defense, we have the number one passing defense in the league at this point.
Hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, I know we've given a lot of flowers to their top performers here in the first 20 minutes or so, right? But I don't want to folks to get that confused. I think it's
Right.
still a huge challenge for Tarleton State to come to the Dome and be competitive with really an elite FCS team like the Yotes are this year. So um,
Right.
it's going to be a really tough road to hoe coming from Texas, but we'll see what Saturday brings, of course. But um, do you? I should say, I guess, sorry, anything more to add about the offense? Otherwise, I think maybe we
I
switch to their
That's
defense,
it.
talk that a little bit.
Yeah, let's go ahead. That's it for offense.
Gotcha. Do you have the defensive metrics like you had for the offense there in front of you by chance?
I do. So their defense, 42nd ranked scoring defense compared to our number two defense. Again, they're in the top third, of the or right on the edge of the top third of the entire FCS. And then their rushing defense. This is where it's going to get bad for them. It's going to get bad in a hurry. their rushing defense is rated number 60.
Mm-hmm.
So about right, dead smack in the middle there of the entire FCS. So I think that's where the advantage quickly swings to our favor because we have the number 6 rushing offense. So you got 6 versus 60. Pretty big discrepancy there, and we know that our bread and butter is to run the ball. We've got a 2-3-headed monster there, however you want to slice it. But yeah, I think that's where this goes. Is that their defense is okay, right? And again, look at the competition that they've played versus us, and so I think quickly that number is heavily in our favor in terms of running the ball. I think we're going to have a lot of success there.
Yeah, that's the and that was the metrics I saw as well. So that's why I wanted you to share those. Is that offensively, like I said, they've got some really good talent on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively is where they're really gonna, I think, have a problem, particularly in the rush defense. I think, as we know, if we can run the ball, it's over, right? I mean, there's just not. No team has been able to overcome our rush attack if we get it going early, right? The only times that we've kind of sputtered is when really NDSU and SDSU kept us in check on the rush, and both games were ultra competitive. Outside of those, not very competitive games, and we've got the rush game going on most of those, especially at home, which is also another huge factor, is how much better we play at home than on the road for them.
Correct. Yeah, and so I think that's a huge advantage for us. And then I mentioned their defense, their scoring defense is 42nd. Their overall defense is rated 69 to our number 10 rated offense. So if you factor everything together, yards and scoring and everything, just total defense 69th versus our number 10 offense. So, I think the offense is going to put up numbers. I think this really just comes down to, can we stop them? Is our defense going to be able to handle that RPO and shut down their running back? If we can, this game gets ugly. If we can't, maybe it turns into a little bit of a shootout, and they put up some points. And so that's kind of where this game hinges for me. I know listening to some of the national guys talk on their podcast this week, they do give Tarleton a fighting chance. They think they're going to hang in there for three or so quarters, and then we kind of pull away at the end. But, that's really what it comes down to. I think offense, we're going to have a ton of success. Defense is, are we going to be able to shut down that running back? And obviously you and I think we will be able to.
Yeah. That's what we've talked about this week too. It's this is going to be a front seven that like they've never seen before. It would be, arguably one of the best front sevens kind of from end to end, if you will, right? Everybody has their stud players here and there, but end to end, weak side to strong side, whatever you want to say, it's going to be a huge, by far their biggest challenge they've had since Baylor, right? So they're gonna have to really make some adjustments there, especially on that slow developing mesh. I'm really interested to see that. The way we've dominated the line of scrimmage, I have a feeling we could see some plays that really get blown up, that they're trying to be patient on, that get blown up by, take your pick, right? If it's a blitzing linebacker, if it's Grace, it's, if it's Gase, if it's Holden, I mean, anybody could really blow that up quickly. So yeah, I agree with you. I think if you're Tarleton, you got to think about scoring points, and you got to think about scoring a lot of points, because to your point, back to the defense, I just don't see us, if those metrics like we talked about stand true, I don't see that we'll have a problem scoring points. And outside of NDSU, we scored 40 plus every single game in the Dome, and that's where we really seem to thrive there. So
I'm glad you brought that up. Let's, if you don't mind, let's talk us for a little bit. In just terms of what are your thoughts on, USD? Where are we sitting right now coming off the bye week? What's your vibe coming off the Missouri Valley, championship game, obviously winning a share there, beating NDSU, and then having a bye after such a emotional and physical game, right? You're on that high, but you also took some lumps in that game in terms of bumps and bruises. Now we've had the bye. Now we had the similar situation when we played State earlier this year. Similar situation actually with Wisconsin too, if I remember right, just because the Portland State game got canceled. So it seems like after every big opponent that we've played, big tough physical team, we've had a bye. And so kind of what's your feeling as we head into this game in terms of us? Like what do you think the team's at?
Yeah, I mean, based off of just what I've been hearing and Bob's presser in particular, I think the bye week was good because it was an extremely physical game that we all saw, right? Which we anticipate that
Yep.
playing, NDSU, SDSU, right? The both those games were incredibly physical. So I think from a health perspective, it's huge, especially this time of the year because so many teams are beat up. You've been playing a long schedule. Nobody's 100% healthy. Sound like Bob said everyone who we thought and should be available is going to be available on Saturday. So that was great to hear. And I think mentally it comes back to I don't worry about this team from a mental standpoint because they have been so laser focused all year long. And Bob's reiterated that. The players have reiterated that throughout the year that they are so laser focused. I just don't see how they couldn't be for this game. So, there's been talks of people talking about, these big spread games for NDSU and SDSU and USD, are they going to overlook somebody? I don't buy into that. Not for the playoffs, right? That's just, that's baloney. There's no way anybody's overlooking a top 16 team in the country right now. It's just, that's crazy talk to me. But,
Agreed.
So no, I think we're in a great position.
And then just one other question for you. Coming off the bye, do you think we start slow? In the first quarter, do you think it takes us 5 to 10 minutes to get going, or do you think we jump out 14-0 like we did against NDSU with all guns ablazing?
Yeah, it's actually funny. I have that written down.
That's my second. That's my second reference for the Texans, man.
There you go.
I mentioned saddle up when we started, and I got guns ablazing here. I'm on fire.
Mitch is on fire tonight, guys. But
by the way, Creighton's winning 15-6 in the third set. The volleyball update. They won set 1 and 2, and they are up 15-6 in set 3. So it's not looking good for our Lady Yotes.
Yeah, that's tough place to play, but
yeah,
that's always that was a tough challenge to begin with for sure. But
for sure.
No, it's actually funny that you said talking about a slow start. That's literally one of my items I had on my list. I said the Yotes do need to watch out for a slow start, kind of for two reasons, right? Haven't played for a couple weeks, but I also think historically we've kind of started slow, especially if we start on defense. It seems like started not NDSU, of course, but games previous to that we've started a little slow. I actually think we could have a slow start on defense. Just seeing that offense for the first time live action, I have a feeling there could be a couple drives. There's the first couple of drives, where we could give up a big play, right? That feels like, ooh, that doesn't feel good, right? But then I think it's only going to take a couple of drives before we settle in and go, okay, now we see what's going on here, right? But it's kind of like, I almost want to compare it to like the old Army Navy days, right? Where everyone talked about, man, it's hard to prepare for the triple option, right? Until you go see a team execute it, run it live. You can only have your scout team run it so well before somebody comes in and really executes it at a high level. And so there could be a little bit of that, but I don't worry about it overall for the game. But I could definitely see a slow start for us.
All right. Yep, that's fair. I agree with that. What else? Anything else you want to talk about before we go to kind of impact players and then predictions?
Just two quick notes actually. Back on Tarleton's defense. One thing that they do like to do, they like to bring a lot of pressure in a lot of different ways. So I think it's something again to kind of keep in mind. We've historically not had a lot of problems giving up, sacks and things like that off of, exotic pressure. So I don't worry about that too much. This O-line seems to be dialed in on both run and pass. Don't really have a lot of concerns on there, but I think more so that'll create some opportunities for us, hopefully. But the other one too is that they love to play man-to-man, and they will put their guys on an island playing man-to-man on defense as well. So I bring that up is that when I saw that / heard that, certainly seems like a game where Karan Adams could be a guy that finds the end zone multiple times, right? And so again, if they give him, if Aiden Bauman looks at a hash and sees, man on man with one of the fastest guys in the conference, he's going to be excited to see that. So something to keep in mind as we kind of see that happen on Saturday. I'd love to see Karan on a big play like that.
Oh, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think the one word that kind of describes their defense is aggressive. They're not
Hmm.
afraid to take risks, and like you said, put guys out on an island, one on one, send some extra pressure, which the Yotes O line does give up some pressure. They don't give up a ton of sacks, but they do give up pressure.
Yeah.
Aiden's been quick to get the ball out at times and avoid that sack. But
Hmm.
I agree. I think they will be aggressive. And I think they kind of have to be in this game, honestly. And I do like what you say about hitting them over the top with a Quran bomb.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That would be fantastic to see. So, well, sorry, one last note before on the defense, because you just brought it up and it reminded me. They do lead the teams that are left in the playoffs in turnover margin. Now, again, you have to take it with a grain
Okay.
of salt with maybe their conference level of competition. But to your point, they're an aggressive team. They do cause
Yeah.
turnovers. So I think a lot of that comes with that pressure that they bring, that's causing those turnovers. So again, something to be aware of if you're Tarleton. They're going to want to try to bring pressure. They got to find a way to get turnovers. They got to find a way to score a ton of points. So they've got a tall task in front of them on Saturday.
Absolutely. All right. So we talked about, their running back, their wide receiver, got to shut them down. We talked about kind
Hmm.
of owning the line of scrimmage and how we do that on defense and shutting down the running back with our front seven. I talked about bully ball on offense, just owning the line of scrimmage, just kind of ground and pound. Take those deep shots when they're there, get those chunk plays like we've seen all year. Let's talk about impact players. Who do you like on? Let's do our offense first. Who you got for? Who you think is going to go off? Who's going to have the biggest day on offense?
Yeah, um, it's going to be interesting, but I could see both Pierre and Tice having huge days, right? That's what all the metrics point to is that
Right,
we go for, I wouldn't be shocked to see us rush for 200, 250, somewhere in that range if we can get the run game going. And if we do get it going, we're not going to go away from it, right? There's just no
right,
reason to when it goes.
right.
So, um, my hope is that those two both have huge days because that means we are winning the football game and it'll be a, not really a very competitive game.
All
Um,
right.
but to that point, if Tarleton really commits, like we've talked about in the past, if you're opposing teams, you have to commit to stopping that in some way, shape, or form. And if they sell out to sell or to stop the rush game, um, I really like the idea of a lot of one-on-one matchups with, you know, again, we already mentioned it, Kron, right? Being
Yep.
a guy that can have a big day, but it's going to again go back to Aiden and say, hey, we need you to pick up that pressure and see where the guy's coming from, make the right read, make the throws. And again, it's something he's done all year long. So I have full confidence that if that's the route we have to go, we'll be successful there too. So,
All right. So you just named four guys. You got to pick one.
oh, you want me to pick one? Okay. I'm going to say,
Absolutely. You got to pick
yeah.
one.
Oh, yeah. I'll go with my original one. I will say Karan Adams. I'm going to say
Okay.
he's my guy to keep an eye out for. Maybe not a ton of volume, but look for a huge home run play from him.
Randy Moss game again, like 3 catches, 3 touchdowns,
Yep. Would love
150,
to see that.
150 yards.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. Karan Adams. I'm going, you mentioned it right at the get go, Tyson Pierre. I'm actually going to go Pierre,
Hmm.
Charles Pierre Jr., and that's because him and Tice seem to rotate every other game.
It's
Each of them go
clockwork.
off. Yeah, it's like
Uh-huh.
clockwork. And Tice had the better game against NDSU. Neither of them had a ton of yards, but Tice had the 2 touchdowns early. And kind of in terms of Pierre Jr. standards, it was pretty quiet. And so
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
expecting him to go off in this game, get back to his running ways, and show why he should have been in the running for some of those awards given out to offensive guys this year. But nonetheless, I'm going Charles Pierre Jr. I think he gets over 100 and at least 1 or 2 touchdowns. So that's where I'm going. How about defense? Who you like on defense?
Yeah, I mean, um, again, back to your point, I think we have to make a concerted effort to stop Britain, right?
Mhm.
We're going to see two of the best running backs really in the country on Saturday, which is fun itself for the fans. But
Yeah.
um, because of that, I really want to see Gary Bryant uh, do what he's done all year long. I think he's going to be kind of the, if you will, the quarterback of the defense a little bit. I know Shorter also is in that kind of same realm, but I think Gary
Yeah.
Bryant, I like to look to see him be pretty active, knowing that they're going to run that RPO mesh. I think he could have a ton of tackles, and he's going to be super active on Saturday.
Yeah, he was snubbed with one of those Missouri Valley Awards too. Didn't make first team, second team. What was he, like, honorable mention or something like that?
Yes, I believe you're right. I think it was honorable mention. I have to go back and
Yeah,
look, and that was
yeah.
one that I'm sure you when you tuned in, you saw us, and that was the head scratcher of the kind of snubs, if you will, when we
Hey,
look
and
at the Missouri
I
Valley
know the
Award.
Valley's full of good players. I
There
know
is.
this
That's
the league we're
it's
in is full of good players. Don't get me wrong, but that guy deserves it. If anybody does, and I know he's coming out playing with his hair on fire on Saturday, so I like that pick.
hmm
I'm gonna go. You mentioned him in your sentence there too. You mentioned Shorter. That's who I'm going.
yeah.
And I think the reason I'm going him is because senior leader. He's been the quarterback of that secondary all year. He's laid the wood on some guys. He's had some interceptions. I think that he'll be tested both in the run game. He's going to have to come down and help on that RPO. And I also think he's going to be expected to cover deep when they take those deep shots to that wide receiver. So he's going to have his hands full on Saturday, both, like I said, coming down and helping on the run game and turning around and sprinting backwards on that passing game. So I'm going to go Dennis Shorter there. I think that's all I have. I think let's jump to predictions here. We're at 40 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You want to go first? Or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go first. And while I'm doing that, let's for those that are watching, we got about 10 people in here.
Oh
We've got a
yeah, yeah.
couple. We've got a couple predictions in here we can throw out.
hmm So
Yoke
Yote fan
fan,
Jeremy's got one in here as well.
Yoke fan says the Yotes fear no one. 42-10, big win covering that spread. And you mentioned it. We've scored over 40 points in 5 of our 6 games this year. The only one we didn't was against NDSU, but we still put up 29.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 42-10, I really like that. And then Jeremy, he's got 38-10, so very similar there. Another big win. I like it. Oh, we got Grandpa Larry. Grandpa Larry chiming in here too. The Coyotes have one more goal to reach. I agree. We,
hmm
we've we've made the we've met the small goal, but now the bigger goal is right there for the taking. Coyotes win 45-7. That's a dominating win at home.
Yes, would love to see any of those scores for sure. So before I forget, Jake also texted us his score prediction. He said
Yep.
41-10, similar to Grandpa Larry there. So they're on the same wavelength, not surprising. But another
Yeah.
huge, huge win there as well. So, um,
Yeah, very similar. And before I give mine, I'm just going to say, we like to look at Massey every week, the Massey ratings and their matchup tool. Their matchup tool gives us an 81% win probability in this game, and they predicted a final score of 33-19. So they're only expecting that to be a 2 touchdown. If my math
yes,
serves me
Matt.
right there, that's a 2
Yes,
touchdown game.
I was just going to say, if we look at metrics, I did notice that a lot of the metrics, Massey included, love Tarleton. So kind of
Yeah.
interesting there too.
They also loved one of those. I don't know if it was Massey, but one of those loved Drake all year too. Had him ranked in the top 10.
Say the one that I looked at here for the playoffs was one metric I saw, love Tarleton and UT Martin. So I don't know what that means exactly, but it's always interesting.
All right, I'm gonna give mine. So I'm
Yeah.
going. I like that 40-point mark. I think we hit it again this game. And so I'm going 41-17. And the only reason I'm giving them 17 is because I do think Kayvon Britton gets one on us, and I think Darius Cooper probably gets one on us too. I mean, they're athletes. They're going to get their yards. I don't think we're going to pull a 30 rushes and hold them to -3 yards like we did against Indiana State. Like, they're going to get some yards. And so I'm
Yeah.
giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm giving them 17. Now, I will asterisk that with saying I've overstated the opponent's points almost every single week on this show. And every time the defense beats my number. So I fully expect us now to hold them to less than 17. So take that with what you will. But 41-17, what do you got?
Yeah, you make a good point. Now you're making me nervous to give my prediction because I kind of agree with you. I think that between Britton and Cooper, there's a lot of talent on that team, especially in those two. I think they're going to find a way to get theirs, maybe just be in one play, right? But
And we do a good job of spotting the other team 7 points at home this year. It seems like we let the other team go down, score on the opening drive. So
right, right. There's always
factor.
that. So no, I think because the offense is very unique. Um, we may have a proponency to be starting a little bit slow, having to try to kind of settle in with this offense. So I do think they're going to score actually. And actually, I thought my prediction was pretty homerish, but after seeing these ones, I feel now like I'm way off. But I've got it 42-20 for the
Oh,
final.
wow.
I do. I think they're going to score 20. And I think another reason I say that is that I think we're going to score a lot, which is going to give them a lot of possessions. So I don't think that the 20 is going to feel like they scored 20. It's going to be one of those where it's kind of they have enough talent to move the ball and score the ball, and we're going to give them a lot of possessions because I think we're going to score a ton.
I mean, you're definitely giving them some respect, which I'm kind of leaning that way too. But at the same time, our defense might say otherwise. So
Yeah, please.
I would love to be wrong.
I was going to say defense, please. If it's, hold them to 7, 10, 3, 0, whatever it is, and then just come and chirp at me all over Twitter, whatever you want to do, and tell me how I'm terrible and wrong. I would love that. That would be fantastic.
They've had several opportunities to do that to me this year. So,
yeah.
Yeah. And Grandma Tappy here, we got 35-10. So, a lot of these all on the same page, thinking right around that 10-point mark, including Jake there with 41-10 too. So everybody's kind of thinking around 10. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of unknowns, right? It's a new offense we haven't seen, and it's a team that we've never played, a conference that we just don't see really ever. And so there's a lot of unknowns, and they're coming in with confidence too. They won their first playoff game, as an FCS program, so they're going to be riding the high, and they're looking to show out, like we mentioned early in the show too. They want to get to the FBS level as quick as possible. They have the funding and the facilities to do it. They're just trying to catch up in terms of recruiting, and in order to do that, making a big statement win against us, and knocking off a top 4 seed in the playoffs would be a way to do that. So they're going to come in hungry. And by the way, I would want to mention this too. Their band is also coming. Their band, right. This is an NCAA thing that we actually found this out this week. The NCAA pays for the travel of their band, and not just their band, but all bands in the playoffs. So their band will be here. It will be dueling bands on the field at halftime. In Texas, they do take band very seriously. We actually had one of the employees who works for the sound at USD actually messaged us talking about that and how it's going to be very loud in the dome because their band will be playing, I assume, their fight song and obviously, different team cheers and stuff here and there when they get first downs and touchdowns. So just something else to expect if you're USD fans. Make sure we're kind of overpowering them and also supporting the hell out of our band when our band's out there. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Just one comment in closing, and actually Larry just hit on it. Like he said, remember guys, we are in the dome, and that's one thing we didn't talk about is this team is elite overall. We are super elite in the dome. So
yes,
like I said, no disrespect to Tarleton, but if we see what we know the Yotes can do, we'll see a pretty convincing win on Saturday.
For sure. All right, man. I'm super jacked up. I've been tweeting about this. We've been posting to the Facebook page all week. We've got the all red out uniforms.
Yep.
I don't know what else to say, but I'll see you Saturday. I'm going to be at the basketball game at 11, and then I'm going to walk my happy butt over to through the concourse to the dome there. So I won't be at tailgate, but I'll be inside.
Hey, I was going to say, if you're not at tailgate, you better be at the women's game. And if you're not at the women's game, you better be at tailgate. So vice versa. Right. So I'll be at tailgate at 10. It's going to be a game time decision for me if I head over to the women's game or not. But regardless, looking forward to Saturday. And as always, go Yotes.
That's right. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in tonight, gave us your comments, your score predictions. And for those that listen to this, the podcast, thank you so much. And go Yotes.
Go Yotes.